Now, the perpetrators of the 1974 Birmingham pub bombings have never been brought to justice. This week, the government ruled out a full public inquiry. In a written statement, the Security Minister said the government had deep sympathy for the victims' families, but that an existing commission, which looks into trouble-related cases, would offer the best chance to get the truth. For families who've been campaigning for decades for an inquiry, it was a blow.
I'm outraged, disappointed, but it's no shock. It's what we expected. It's as if they are quite literally spitting on the graves of our loved ones.
That was Julie Hambleton, the sister of one of the 21 killed. Now, many families believe only a judge-led public inquiry can get to the truth. So does the government's Troubles Commission have enough power? In some cases, it will have the power to appoint judges to lead inquiries that have the ability to compel witnesses to give testimony. But at the moment, that's not the case where inquests have already taken place, as with the Birmingham pub bombings. Here's the BBC Ireland correspondent Chris Page.
It will have the powers and the responsibility to investigate all the killings from the years of violence, which were known as the Troubles. About 3,500 people were killed in that period in Northern Ireland, in the rest of the UK and in the Republic of Ireland and overseas as well. So it is a huge amount of work, and really exactly how the process will work will depend on how this legislation is amended as it goes through the House of Commons, what the final form of the legislation will end up as.
That's the BBC Ireland correspondent Chris Page there. Alex, if I come to you first, what do you say to the families who are bitterly disappointed by this decision?
So our sympathies must be with the families that have chased up on this particularly awful situation for so many years now, the loved ones that they've left behind and those people that were injured in that terrible bombing. I think we also need to pay tribute to the campaign Justice for the 21 for pursuing this for so many years. And we do understand that they're disappointed and they are continuing to look for answers. As the Security Minister said, we think, the government thinks, the best way for them to get those answers is through the Independent Commission. The Independent Commission, it's already handling about 100 other Troubles-related cases. It's handling cases like the Guildford pub bombings, which is a similar situation, another devastating attack on England's soil. And I think we're going through a situation where that commission is being given extra powers. So the Northern Ireland Troubles Bill is going to reform the way the Commission works, give it extra governance powers, extra powers to enhance the way it goes after evidence, and give it a lot of extra things.
Can you give us any promises or clarity on that then? Because as we understand it, as I just said, at the moment, if an inquest has happened in relation to a particular case or atrocity, they would not, the Commission would not have the ability to conduct that kind of judge-led inquisitorial inquiry. Is that going to change?
So we've laid the new legislation in front of Parliament in October, so just a couple of weeks ago. So it may change as we go through Parliament.
Because at the moment that isn't the case, is it? So the Birmingham families would not be entitled to that kind of inquiry.
So there is a lot of extra powers in that legislation. So it will improve the governance, it will have a voice for victims and veterans on the statutory body that will oversee.
But they wouldn't be, because there has been an inquest in the case of the Birmingham pub bombings, they would not be entitled to a judge-led inquisitorial inquiry that had the ability to compel witnesses. That is what it is at the moment.
So my understanding is the body will have the powers to compel witnesses, but I will go away and check after this.
We really need to check on that, because that's absolutely key. Harriet.
And of course the legislation's in draft form and there are a number of issues with it. But to go back to the Birmingham pub bombings, this was a terrorist atrocity that happened right here in Birmingham, and there should be no statute of limitations on prosecuting the people responsible for that if there is anyone out there watching who has more evidence that they can bring forward. This is, you know, absolute stain on our history. And so I think while I tend to agree with what Alex is saying about the Commission having the powers, I think we need to make sure that whatever happens, we never close the door on justice for these 21 families and the 200 people who were injured in these bombings.
Max?
Well, it was 51 years ago, but in the minds of those families who were affected by this horrific attack, it will still feel very, very fresh. And we saw from Julie there how utterly visceral the reaction was. And we have to understand that, right? In these kind of situations, we need to look at what the victims and their families want from any kind of process that's led by the public sector. Now, if the victims are looking for something inquisitorial, that's what they ought to get, because they will never get closure on this, right? They've lost loved ones, but what they can get is the answers that they need. And also, it's really important then that for the future, those lessons are learned so we can do better in future.
To be clear then, though, Harriet, I mean, your government didn't, you know, I remember Andy Street, the then Mayor of the West Midlands, going to London, speaking to the then Home Secretary, the Prime Minister about this. Yeah. Your government didn't give a public inquiry.
And indeed, it was the case that this 2023 legislation, we believed, would provide the right kind of form. That's, of course, now being revised by the current government. So I think we do need to really
revised, arguably, to make it tougher. To give more powers to the existing commission.
Well, I think there do seem to be questions. Your Northern Ireland correspondent has raised some questions, and I think Alex and I need to go back and make sure that for the people of Birmingham, the Justice for 21, that we've got absolutely the right powers, and the Security Minister has made these assurances, but we do need to test those and scrutinise those.
One of the important changes that we've not spoken about yet is the 2023 legislation essentially gave immunity to members of the IRA if they came forward to give evidence to that commission. Now, we thought that was wrong, and in fact it was found to be against the UK's human rights legislation, so we're taking that away. So in future cases where there is new evidence provided, the IRA can be held to account, and I think that's an important change that we need to recognise this time around.
All right, well, we certainly need to seek clarity, don't we, on some of that, and we will be watching that bill as it makes its way through Parliament to see how it affects the families of the Birmingham pub bombing victims. OK, thank you all. We're going